All right, so today we're going to dive into a philosophy that's been around for over 2,500 years. And it all started with one person's really profound quest to understand what it means to be human, a quest that kicked off with a single, pretty unsettling question.
Is life just this? An endless loop of pain, getting let down, and eventually death? I know, it sounds a little bleak, right? But asking this exact question is what launched the entire journey we're about to explore. It was the one question a man felt he absolutely had to answer.
And believe me, what a journey it was. So for the next few minutes, we're going to trace that quest together, from where it all began to the answers it uncovered, answers that have really shaped the lives of millions of people.
And you can really see the impact of that journey. We're talking over 520 million followers around the globe, making Buddhism the world's fourth largest religion. So before we even get into the teachings, it's worth just taking a second to appreciate how significant this philosophy really became.
So who started it all? Well, here's the thing. It wasn't some god or a mythical figure. It was a real person. A prince named Siddhartha Gautama, whose seemingly perfect life was about to get completely turned upside down by a major existential crisis. So his story is really one of complete transformation. Siddhartha starts out as a prince, totally sheltered from any kind of suffering. But at age 29, he goes outside the palace walls and sees what are now called the four sights: an old person, a sick person, a dead body, and a peaceful monk. And this just shattered his reality. He then spends the next 6 years trying the exact opposite: extreme self-denial, almost starving himself, only to realize that wasn't the answer either. The huge breakthrough was when he discovered the middle way, this balanced path right between luxury and hardship. And that is what led him to meditate under the Bodhi tree, where he finally achieved enlightenment and became the Buddha, which literally means the awakened one.
So what did he discover under that tree? Well, it wasn't some crazy mystical secret. It was actually a super clear, almost logical diagnosis of what it means to be human. He laid it all out in what we now call the Four Noble Truths. You can almost think of it like a doctor's visit, First you get the diagnosis. Life is dukkha. Now, yeah, that gets translated as suffering, but it's more subtle than that. It's like this deep underlying feeling of dissatisfaction. Second, what's the cause? It's tanha, a word for craving, for clinging to things that don't last. That's the root of our disappointment. But then you get the good news, the prognosis. There is a way to end this dissatisfaction. Because if we're the cause, we also have the power to be the cure. And finally, the prescription, the Noble Eightfold Path.
Okay, so that brings us to the actual prescription. The Eightfold Path is the practical how-to guide for ending all that dukkha. And it's really important to know, this isn't some list of steps you check off one by one. It's much more like a wheel with 8 spokes. They all have to work together to make the wheel turn.
The whole thing starts with wisdom. This is basically about seeing the world clearly, for what it really is, through the lens of those Four Noble Truths. It means you're training your mind to think thoughts of compassion and selflessness instead of, greed and anger. This is the foundation for everything else. Okay, next up, we have moral conduct, which is all about how you actually live in the world. This is where you put that wisdom into practice, through things like right speech, right action, and even right livelihood, making sure that what you say, what you do, and even how you make a living doesn't cause harm to anyone.
And the final piece of the puzzle is concentration. This is all about training your mind. It involves making the right effort to grow those positive thoughts, having right mindfulness to be totally present in the moment, and using right concentration, usually through meditation, to get to a state of really deep, clear insight.
Okay, so we've got the diagnosis, and we've got the prescription. But you might be asking, what's the bigger picture here? Where does all this fit in? Well, that's where we get into huge concepts like karma, rebirth, and the ultimate goal, nirvana.
All right, let's talk about karma, because honestly, this is one of the most misunderstood ideas out there. It's not fate. It's not some big guy in the sky keeping score. Think of it more like a law of nature, like gravity. It's the law of cause and effect. Your intentional actions, and the intention part is key. They create ripples that sooner or later come back to you. Really, it boils down to something we've all heard before. As you sow, so shall you reap. If you plant seeds of kindness and compassion, that's what's going to grow. If you plant seeds of anger, well, that's what you're going to harvest. It's a system of total personal responsibility.
So this whole cycle of cause and effect, driven by all our cravings and desires, is what keeps us stuck in something called samsara. It's this endless, beginningless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. And in Buddhism, this is not a good thing. It's the hamster wheel of suffering that you're trying to get off of.
So the big question is, how do you get off the hamster wheel? The answer is nirvana. And this is another idea that gets really misunderstood. It is not a place, it's not a heaven you go to when you die. The word literally means to blow out, or to extinguish, like blowing out the flame of a candle. You're extinguishing the fires of greed and ignorance. It's a state of ultimate peace you can actually achieve right here in this life.
So, after the Buddha passed away, his teachings, which are called the Dharma, started to spread all across Asia. But as they traveled, they didn't stay exactly the same. They adapted to different cultures, which led to different schools of thought, each with its own special focus.
Okay, so the two big ones you'll hear about are Theravada and Mahayana. Theravada is the school of the elders. It's the oldest tradition. Here, the goal is to become an arhat. That's an individual who achieves their own enlightenment by following the Buddha's original path. But then Mahayana, the great vehicle, introduces this just incredible new idea, the Bodhisattva. This is an enlightened person who, out of pure compassion, decides to delay their own final nirvana to stay on the hamster wheel and help every other single being get enlightened first.
And this leads to a question that comes up all the time. Was the Buddha a god? And the answer is a very clear no. He was a human being who woke up to the real nature of things. Now, Buddhism does talk about gods, or devas, but they're seen as powerful beings who are also still mortal, still stuck on that same hamster wheel of samsara. The Buddha is called the teacher of gods and men because his wisdom let him get off the wheel, which puts him way beyond them. And I think this quote from the Dalai Lama just sums up the whole spirit of this philosophy perfectly. It's not about blind faith. It's not about dogma. It's like being handed a toolbox. The idea is to test these tools out for yourself, see if they work for you, and just use what's helpful.
And that kind of leaves us with one final big idea to chew on. For 25 centuries, this whole journey has been pointing to one thing, that the source of our deepest frustrations and also our greatest peace isn't somewhere out there in the world. It's right here, inside us. So what if the ultimate key to happiness isn't about trying to change all of our circumstances, but simply about changing the mind that's experiencing